Herodotus wrote that this immense structure, longer than 3 football fields and consisting of 3,000 chambers, surpassed anything built by the Greeks.
The way Herodotus describes the labyrinth, it had all kinds of inscriptions all over it and throughout the rooms. Many people have suggested that maybe the history, the knowledge, the information that they wanted to preserve and pass down to generations actually was being preserved in this labyrinth.
But while the hopes of some 2012 believers hinge on finding this labyrinth and the information it might hold, the Egyptian government considers the search for the labyrinth and any 2012 secrets futile. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's chief archaeologist, concedes a labyrinth did exist at Hawara thousands of years ago, but insists nothing remains anymore.
In the Roman period, you hear nothing about the labyrinth, because what has happened, the ancient Egyptian, and in that time, in the Roman period, began to take stones for building structures everywhere. Now, if I will go and excavate at Hawara, I will not discover anything.
Robert Schock is not so sure the labyrinth has vanished completely.
What we have on the surface here is just absolutely tantalizing. You know that big things were happening here. It's no wonder that this inspired legends that people talked about, in some cases, as the 8th wonder of the ancient world.
To help him in his search, Schock has come armed with maps drawn up by a British archaeologist who excavated here more than 100 years ago.
What are we looking at here?
Well, what we're looking at is diagrams that Sir Flinders Petrie, the great 19th, early 20th century Egyptologist, made. Here we see the Hawara pyramid right behind us. What he considered the labyrinth, and what people have been claiming as a labyrinth, is on the southern side of the pyramid.
Schock and I have been given access to the inside of the pyramid at Hawara.
This is it right here.
We enter through the same passageway that Petrie discovered back in 1888. Could Petrie have missed an important clue that could lead us to the legendary Hall of Records and its supposed 2012 secrets?
Yeah, good.
Only a few feet into the passage, our journey comes to an abrupt end.
Is that water? That's water.
That is water. There's mud and water. You can see how this water just standing in it.
So that's the water table.
That is the water table.
Petrie didn't have this issue when he came in here.
No, he was able to go in there. He was able to find the sarcophagus, enter all the chambers.
To thoroughly explore this, that water is going to have to be drained.
Oh, yeah, and that would be a major undertaking.
It turns out water from a nearby irrigation canal has seeped into the ground here. This could be a huge roadblock in the hunt for the labyrinth. Back outside, we venture some distance from the pyramid. All around are pieces of broken pottery that date back to Roman times a few thousand years ago. If the labyrinth does still exist, people must have lived on top of it. Suddenly, we see something peeking out from the sand that catches our eyes.
Wow.
So what's this? This doesn't look like anything we've seen.
No, this is, well, from a distance, this is, actually, I gotta take a look at this.
Looks like
but when
supports.
when I look at it, it looks like it's actually support. There's more structures underneath here.
Could this be the ancient labyrinth some believe contains secrets about 2012? Even without hard proof, author Patrick Jarrell is utterly convinced the labyrinth, or Hall of Records, not only survives at Hawara, but that once excavated, it will contain a how-to guide for surviving a 2012 cataclysm.
The labyrinth was a warning for the future civilization, that these disasters happen regularly. We are in a race of time. The longer we wait, the more improbable it will be that lots of people will survive this cataclysm.
Although the Egyptians are credited with building the labyrinth, Jarrell says the secret knowledge contained within is actually not from the Egyptians. Jarrell believes the labyrinth's contents came from the legendary lost civilization of Atlantis. In fact, he believes that both the Egyptians and the Mayans inherited their highly advanced knowledge from Atlantis.
The Egyptians and the Maya were the survivors from the previous cataclysm.
Gerald says he discovered this in a unique interpretation of the Dendera zodiac found in an ancient temple in Egypt, and in a rare translation of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a series of scrolls believed to be more than 4,000 years old. According to Gerald, both sources detail true accounts of ancient cataclysms, including the one that supposedly wiped out Atlantis.
The labyrinth was necessary because they wanted to preserve what they knew about such disasters in one building. And that building had to be indestructible. And in it are the hieroglyphs with the calculations that lead to the disaster of 2012.
The translations Gerald is relying on have only been around a few decades, but the legend of Atlantis has been around a few millennia. It comes to us from the Greek philosopher Plato.
Plato is the one who first put forth the idea of Atlantis, and he inherited that knowledge from the Egyptian priesthood. They were very upset with him for the fact that he published their legends of Atlantis.
According to Plato's account, Atlantis suffered a colossal earthquake around 9600 BC and sank into the Atlantic Ocean. Could this, in fact, be a true account of a cataclysm, like the one some believe will strike in 2012? Is it possible that Plato got it right?
Plato was telling a story. It's a story about Athens and his own culture at the time. It has nothing to do with actual historical account of peoples that actually lived. It's mythology.
But Gerald and others are convinced the story of Atlantis is more than myth. And they believe the Atlanteans managed to make arrangements to safeguard their knowledge and culture before disaster struck.
And they took this knowledge and they went to these different parts of the world, such as the Himalayas and Egypt and Africa and in the South America. And it may very possibly be that the Atlantean link is the missing piece that helps us to understand the sudden rise of many of the civilizations that are mysteries to us today.
In the next hour, Richard C. Hoagland will launch his quest to hunt down scientific proof that planet Earth is on a collision course with disaster, unless drastic action is taken. We'll also follow John Major Jenkins' expedition in southern Mexico, the area he's convinced is the birthplace of the 2012 date. He's hot on the trail of an ancient Mayan monument, newly discovered, which he believes will show the real truth behind the Mayan prophecy.
It's amazing to think that in these jungles around here, there's probably still lots of carved monuments to be found.
But the Maya weren't the only ones to prophesize about the period around 2012. We'll examine other sources, Nostradamus, the Sibylline prophecies, the Bible's Book of Revelation, looking for clues about 2012 and whether we're really facing the end of times.
The Book of Revelation is it's a prescription for how this current age is going to end.
All this and more in the second hour of 2012, Startling New Secrets. Our quest for the truth behind 2012 continues here among the Mayan ruins at Tikal. All around me are monuments marking the passage of time. For the Mayans, time was sacred. They created at least 20 different calendars, tracking everything from the movements of stars to the annual harvests. And so it's no wonder that so many people are paying close attention to the date the Mayans chose to end their long count calendar. It began in 3000 BC and ends on December 21st, 2012.